What's doing, everybody? Welcome to First Class Fatherhood. I'm Alec, and before I hit you with today's interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the link in the description so you can listen to all of the interviews I've done with so many tremendous dads, including Dana White, Deion Sanders, Tony Hawk, and so many others. Now let's get going with today's interview. Joining me now, First Class Father, Derick Dillard. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you for having me, Alec. Glad to be here.
Let's start right here. How many kids do you have and how old are they?
We've got two boys, my wife Jill and I, and they're 4 and 2 right now.
Very cool. You going for the girl? Or you guys all done?
We'll see. You know, we're not definite one way or the other, but we're just kind of enjoying life.
Okay, yeah, we had 3 boys before we went and got the girl, so we didn't have the girl yet. We'd have 5 by now, but we got her. So, and she runs the show here. But if you could, Derick, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Sure. My name is Derick Dillard. I'm 31 years old. I've been a dad now for almost 5 years, but I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, as did my wife, and have since gone other places such as Nepal to do mission work and to Central America after getting married with my family. So I've had a venture as a single guy and adventure as a married guy, but had never left the country before college, and then went to Oklahoma State, majored in accounting. But when my dad passed away in college, it really changed my perspective of life. And, you know, I was pretty content at that point. I would just kind of, living my life how I thought. I was a Christian and had made the commitment at the age of 9, actually, to give my life to Jesus Christ and follow him. That's very important to me, the most important thing in my life. So that defines me. But then also, there's a lot of things that have happened since then to kind of shape my story. And like I mentioned, my dad passed away when I was in college, and really started thinking about how short life is and what really matters and what doesn't matter so much that people put a lot of weight on. And I was a part of a church at that time in college, and missions was very important, going and helping people who are less fortunate and sharing the hope of the gospel. And I'd never done that personally. I was supportive of it, and but just never had a personal calling to do that. But then ended up, long story short, made a commitment to go 2 years to Nepal. Again, in light of that kind of more focused realization that life is short and brief, and we only have so much time of influence, and knew that I would never get that time back. So I thought, hey, I can, after college, go 2 years to Nepal. A lot of young kids do that, like as far as adventure, whether it's going backpacking in Europe or whatever, but really wanted to have a focused direction during that time and give back to others. Not that I didn't want to get married and have children, but just my philosophy is trying to make the most of each opportunity in life, whether that's as a single person or as a father, or as a married person without children. Wherever you are in your path in life, there's not really, an end of life until you die. So, I just try, and it's not like life ends whenever you become a dad. A lot of people portray it that way of, well, I've got kids now, so all my fun things are my past. But I just try and make the most out of whatever stage of life I'm in. So at that point, try to make the most of it, and then came back from Nepal. But I try to make the most of just every stage of my life, and feel that I've learned a lot from other people who've kind of taught me that along the way. And that's no different with fatherhood. And when I got back from Nepal, got married to a wonderful woman, and was working in accounting here at the home office of Walmart in Northwest Arkansas, doing sales and use tax audit. So very different shift from the mountains of the Himalayas to working in a cubicle doing tax audit at the Walmart home office. But then again, after our first son was born, our direction shifted, and we took a position with a mission organization in Central America, and worked down there off and on for 2 years, trying to help gain communities, gain life skills and job skills training to have a honest way of making a living instead of the gang lifestyle. So things got pretty dangerous down there, as you can imagine, for a family. So just before our second son was born, we moved back to the States, and through a number of circumstances, personal circumstances in our life, ended up pursuing law school, and I'm currently a law student here at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. So things have changed a lot, but it's always an adventure, and I wouldn't consider anything more or less an adventure from one stage of life to another.
Yeah, very well said, Derick. And it's quite a ride you've had here, and I can definitely relate to you there with losing your father. And sorry about that. I lost both of my parents in my early 20s, before I became a father myself. So I understand what that's all about. And how did becoming a father then? So how old were you then when you first became a father, and how did becoming a dad kind of change your perspective on life?
So I was 26 when I became a dad, and it really helped me understand how much my parents loved me and kind of what it was for them raising me. Now being a dad myself, I feel like I could relate to them in one sense more, as well as in my faith. All through the Bible, there's a lot of analogies from father to son here and there, and I always just kind of like ran past that, when I was younger. But then it really informed a lot of my understanding of Scripture after that, and I understand that things are organized the way they are to teach us more about life than just the immediate relationship that we're in.
Yeah, very cool. And so were you aware then, before you met your wife, were you aware of the Duggars, the 19 and counting? Were you aware of that show? Had you seen it before you ever met your wife, or did you know all about that before you get in? And what was it like for you to marry into the family?
So Jill and I actually grew up in the same area, and I was aware of her family, but then didn't get to know her until actually I was in Nepal and had just had a relationship with her dad shortly before going to Nepal, meeting him once before that, and corresponding with him. And then our relationship kind of grew because her dad would call and try and get or ask me to share with him some updates from the mission field. And so our relationship grew over a couple of years, and about a year and a half, and really started to see a lot of the commonalities between Jill and I. And her focus was to be, she was studying midwifery at the time, the practice of being a midwife, helping women deliver babies, and she wanted to use that on the mission field. So we had a lot of common interests in that way. And so he actually gave me her number and said, "Hey, why don't you give her a call and tell her it's okay. I gave you her number." And so I didn't really know where that would lead exactly, but I texted her. I was on vacation at the time with a buddy of mine in Tokyo, climbing Mount Fuji, and had some downtime. So we actually talked a couple of times on YouTube, and I think 11 hours combined between the first two Skype calls that we had together, and really hit it off and had a lot in common. My family and her family were very politically involved in our area in Arkansas. So as a kid, I knew of her dad as a state representative, and but more just from a distance, and then really got to know her as a person, and really just respected where she's coming from and how genuine she was and her love for people. So we really hit it off, and had the desire to work on the mission field together and to raise our family on the mission field is what we're moving toward.
Very cool, Derick. And what about as far as discipline goes? What type of disciplinarian are you as a dad, and is it different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Yeah, so I think it's really important and a big job as a parent to train your child, and that word has a really negative connotation, but all it means is directing your children, helping them to understand the way that life is, because otherwise, people get into adulthood and get a rude awakening. Rather learn when you're younger the importance of good character and honesty and treating people the right way. You'd rather learn that as a kid than in a harsh way whenever you're older, and people don't really care about your feelings as much. And if you show up to late work and they say you're fired, you don't want to learn that way. You want to learn the importance of values and hard work at a younger age. So I feel like that's a really important aspect and role of a father in raising children. And I think you have to. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important to lovingly correct them. I don't feel like it's right if you're ever angry, because you have to remember the goal of parenting is for their good, and to understand why what they're doing is wrong and why what they need to do is right, and how that can help them.
Yeah, very well said, Derick. And on that, you probably answered most of it there. But I was gonna say, what are some of the top values that you're hoping to instill in your kids here growing up?
I think just respect for other people is a big one, and putting yourself in other people's shoes and having a perspective of the world that allows you to be open-minded and respect other people's views and opinions, even if they might not be the same as yours, to at least try and put yourself in their shoes and treat them with respect, and to develop a work ethic, and to obviously learn academically, make sure that you're well prepared for whatever area of whatever profession that you want to pursue, and help them understand what their passions are. So help them understand, because they're their own person, that what they're interested in might not be what I'm interested in, but I want to help them know what are they passionate about and how can they help other people through that, and give back to society that way.
And listen, right now, hopefully, when I put this out, we'll be in a little bit of better shape here. But right now, the whole country, the whole world is being swept over by this coronavirus. It's changed our entire way we're going about business. A lot of people out of work. How are you and your family kind of handling the whole coronavirus and the quarantine and the whole bit?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's sad to see how it's affecting a lot of people in this way, and especially the older people who are more vulnerable. But we're trying to make the most of it. Like most other people, we're inside of our home during this time, trying to do our best to do our part to social distance and see how we can have fun otherwise. For example, 2 days ago, I think it was, we went fishing. So we're trying to enjoy those things that maybe we didn't do as much earlier, but we can take advantage of. So speaking of fatherhood, like just looking at opportunities that I can connect with my almost 5-year-old. We just enrolled him in kindergarten, so he's adventurous and looking for opportunities to do things like fishing. He's never been fishing before, and in law school right now, I'm on spring break. So I said, hey, let's go fishing. My mom doesn't live very far away, and I grew up on the lake. So we just went to the lake and went fishing off the dock behind the house where I grew up. And it's great here in Arkansas. They try to really encourage people to do that. There's a lot of guidance on what you can't do, but then they're trying to do a lot to help break down a lot of the red tape, to encourage people to have an outlet to do things if they're being told what they can't do, helping for what they can do. So, for example, they waived a lot of the fishing regulations for kids and with permits, and there's still certain regulations in place, like number and size of species that you can catch, but trying to help people get to be able to do things like fishing without going out and getting a license in some situations. So, we just try and get out and enjoy the outdoors, go on walks. We go on walks probably every day as breaks while I'm studying, and just hang out and try and do our part to get through this.
Yeah, and one of the things I talk about all the time on my show here, Derick, is that we have a fatherless crisis going on in the country. Way too many kids are growing up without a dad in their life, or in their home, or in their a father figure. And one of the things I would hope for is that out of this thing, maybe it could bring families together and have a chance to spend more time together, and maybe that could be some type of silver lining out of all of this. And I think I know that you're somebody that keeps God first in your life. I am as well. And I think that's another thing that's been removed so much from our society. So I think if we could get more dads back in the lives of their children and get God back involved in our society, I think those two things combined, we'd see a vast improvement with most of the problems we have in our country here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very well said. I fully agree with that.
Well, what's kind of next for you here? I know you're in law school now at the moment. Where are you planning on that taking you? What kind of goals or plans do you have for the future here?
Well, it's a pretty loaded question why we got into law school, but I knew coming into it that I wanted to be involved in public service. So I'm really trying to get a lot of experience in that as I can. I worked for the state attorney general this past summer. I'm currently externing at a prosecutor's office, just trying to get a lot of broad experience in that area, and probably work in the public service area, whether as a public defender or as a prosecutor initially, just when I first get out, and then kind of just try and serve and see where it goes from there.
All right. Last thing I want to hit you with here, Derick. I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
I would say just whatever stage you're in, enjoy every moment of it. You won't get it back. Everything just happens once. It's easy to get caught up in the stress of the moment, but just try and look for that silver lining, like you mentioned with coronavirus or with difficult times. Try and find the positive. Enjoy your time with a newborn, as exhausting as it is, because you won't have it back. And just try and learn what you can and improve and enjoy it going forward.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been on for me. I got to say, Derick Dillard, you're a first-class father, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks so much, Alec.